Hello and welcome to a new episode of Spoonie Space, our weekly web-based show made by Spoonies for Spoonies. You may think, what is a spoonie? Well, a spoonie is a person with a chronic illness, with an invisible illness or chronic pain, and suffers from that daily. So in this show, we discuss several topics that have something to do with being chronically ill and how we deal with these things in our daily lives, basically. We get online every week with a panel of fellow Spoonies and we talk about a certain topic. The topic of this week is how to be your own advocate and also why to be your own advocate. You know, why is it important to be your own advocate when you're a Spoonie? I will start off by introducing the panel and then we will go into the discussion. Well, my name is Natalie. I'm the founder of the community Spoonies For Life. That's our grand community where Spoonie Space is a little part of, so you can look that up. And I live on the island of Lanzarote. I've moved here from Amsterdam because I'm originally from Amsterdam for my health, basically. I'm 33 years old and I'm raising a lovely 5-year-old little girl. And that's very hard with being a spoonie. So that's me. I want to give the mic to Mark and let him introduce himself.
Hello, I'm Mark. I'm a 32-year-old disabled veteran. I have fibromyalgia, a chronic pain condition. I live in Brunswick, Maine. And I would like to go ahead and introduce Lois.
Hello, my name is Lois. I am a 41-year-old spoonie. Fibromyalgia, gastroparesis, and rheumatoid arthritis make me a spoonie. I live in beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada, and I love being a part of Spoonies for Life and Spoonie Space, and I hope that everyone gets the benefit out of it that we're putting into it. On that note, I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Kate.
Aw. Hi everyone, my name is Kate. I am a 26-year-old spoonie. Yeah, I know, I'm a baby. I live in Marlette, Michigan. I have 2 degrees currently, and because of work. Well, now I'd like to pass it to Kathy.
Hi, I'm Catherine. I'm a 54-year-old spoonie. I have fibromyalgia, arthritis, and a bunch of other acronyms, whatever you call it, that keeps me a spoonie. I have 2 grown children. I'm currently on disability, so I am a caregiver for my mother, who is a spoonie, and I enjoy being a part of Spoonies for Life and Spoonie Space. And back to Natalie.
Well, thank you all for those lovely introductions. Let's get into the topic of today. Why is it so important to be your own advocate? I'm going to tell a little part of my story and what led to this topic this week. Well, I have always been ill. I've always been ill. I've always had little things. I got the flu 6 times per year, you know, way more often than other children got it. And there was always something off. I was always more tired. I always had muscle aches, and with whatever test they would do, they could never find it. So I have a very, very, very big medical file. Well, in Holland, you don't really get to see your medical file. You know, the doctors have your medical file, and the doctors will write in it, and when you go to another doctor, they will send your file from one doctor to the next. So all the doctors get to see your file, but you yourself will never get to see your own medical file. Well, more than a year and a half ago, I decided to move to Lanzarote. That's an island in the Atlantic Ocean right next to the north of Africa. It's a Spanish island. So the climate is much, much better. Well, today it's freaking hot and I'm melting. Usually it's It's making me flare a little bit. Usually it's very nice and mild here. Anyway, so I've moved here, and I thought, well, I was feeling quite okay. I've had ups and downs in the years, but I was going up, and it was going pretty well for my spooniness. And I'm like, well, I can totally move, and I don't need all these doctors and hospitals because I never go anymore. But it would be nice to take my medical file with me. Well, I asked for my medical file, and I got like 3 printouts of the latest medicine I've taken in the last 6 months. Yeah, can't really do anything with that, but I was feeling fine, so I thought, whatever, just leave it. So I moved, and I was fine for about, let's say 6 months. And then slowly I started getting ill again. I'm like, what's this? I thought it was better. So since the beginning of this year, my health has been getting worse and worse and worse, and we need to figure out what's wrong. But here, now I am on this island where I don't know doctors. I don't really speak Spanish very well yet. Most of the people speak English here, so I can get somewhere with English. But yeah, my doctors are all Spanish doctors, so I have to get into the system, get registered, find my doctors, then explain to them that I think it's all these autoimmune diseases. It's all very difficult, and I still don't have my medical file from Holland. Luckily, I have an awesome mom, and my mom kind of just stalked all the different doctor's offices that I've ever been to and collected all the bits and pieces. She's like a pit bull. She sees the goal and she goes for it. So my mom got her hands on my full medical file since the day that I've been born. So I got the medical file 2 months ago when my mom came and visited me here on Lanzarote, and I read through the thing and I was amazed. Not in a good way, actually in a bad way, because I thought I had never been diagnosed with anything, basically, because they kept sending me away. And I was very young the first time when I was really diagnosed with something. It was Graves' disease. I was 19, and they told me, well, just take this pill, and at some point it's going to go away. You can stop taking the pill, and that's about it. And in 20 years, you'll probably have something else on your thyroid, but just go to the doctor. They'll give you another pill, and you'll be fine. So I thought, okay, that sounds easy, Well, 5-6 years ago, I got what I believe to be Hashimoto's, which is another autoimmune disease of the thyroid, but kind of like the opposite of what I had when I was younger. And I thought I was never diagnosed. And here I have this medical file in my hands, where now it's 2016, right? And I see that one of my doctors wrote in 2012, I had postpartum depression, which I thought because they told me that. And this doctor literally wrote, postpartum depression is not a possibility because it's too late after giving birth for this to be postpartum depression. Autoimmune Hashimoto's is suspected. Those were the actual words in my file. I've never heard about that disease. Nobody ever told me anything about autoimmune, which was all over my file since 2004. And I just realized I thought I figured out myself what I had, but apparently there were doctors that noticed, but didn't pass it on to others or didn't tell me, so I couldn't advocate for myself and go to the next doctor and say, well, this doctor said, they kind of talk dumb to you, so you understand what they're saying. But with me, in doing that, I didn't even know what was wrong with me. I thought I was so smart and I had it all figured out. Well, 4 years ago, a doctor had it figured out, but just didn't tell me. So that was quite of a long story. That's the exact reason why we do this topic, because that's where I myself realized why it is so important that I know exactly what's going on, and that I cannot choose my own medical path. I didn't go to medical school, but I can guide my doctors in what my other doctors told me. I've been doing this my entire life. This new doctor that's going to treat me can benefit from my 15 to 20 years of experience with other doctors. So I have much more to say, but I'll keep that for further in the show. I want to give Lois the mic and ask her to say something about this topic.
This topic is a very important topic, and this topic is something that hits me in two ways. One, as a patient, and one as a nurse. And so I'm kind of going to approach it from both those places. As the nurse, I can't emphasize enough how important it is to advocate for yourself, because unfortunately in the medical field there are professionals who are overworked, tired, and they just aren't going to listen to you unless you really advocate for yourself. If you are too sick to advocate for yourself, please, please, please find someone trusted, preferably a non-spoonie, because they'll have the energy that you don't. But if they're a spoonie too, that's okay, because they also get it. But you need someone who will help fight for you when you can't fight for you. My story of having to fight for myself started 3 years ago. I was in the hospital with gastroparesis. I was in Missoula, Montana, and it's a pretty small town, not huge, not terribly small, but not big enough to have people that could really manage gastroparesis. I had a feeding tube, I was on TPN, and I had gotten to the point where I couldn't advocate for myself anymore, and the doctor had done everything in his power he could think of to try and reverse what was happening. I wasn't tolerating tube feeds. I would vomit liters of bile at a time. And so my mother called, and she told the doctor, I don't care what you do, you don't have a choice, find something. And he did. He found another doctor in Seattle who could give me a stimulator that would hopefully help reverse what was happening. And so because my mother advocated for me, within I want to say it was 3 days, that doctor had accepted me based off of everything was shutting down. My organs were starting to shut down. And because of that, he agreed to see me within a week. Then I had to start advocating for myself because my insurance company decided to sit on my claim to have the surgery done. And I could not leave Missoula to Seattle until that approval happened. So the social worker in the hospital who should have been advocating for me wasn't. And so I had to get on the phone and call the insurance company, and I got bounced around to a lot of people. And finally, the last person they bounced me to, I put my foot down and said, no, you're not going to bounce me to someone else. And I just basically laid it out and said, I'm dying. This surgery is my last chance to fix it and try to live and survive. And I broke down and cried, and that's okay. It's okay to do that. Do whatever you have to get that person to listen to you. And I happened to get someone who stopped and listened, and that person said, oh my goodness, ma'am, I'm so sorry that this was sat on. He admitted that it was sat on. And he then got his supervisor on the phone, and within 24 hours I was approved for that surgery. If I had not advocated for myself, they would have sat on it until I was too weak to make that flight to Seattle, and I would have ended up dying. Everything was shutting down. So that's why this is important. That's why it's important to advocate for yourself, because my mother did all she could from Seattle, but there was a point where I had to do it myself, and so that's why it's really important, and have a background, have someone or multiple people that you can depend on to help you with that. Mark, what is your story in regards to that?
Well, my story in regards to being your own advocate was facing through getting a medical discharge and then facing the VA system and going through that whole process. With the VA, it's a lot of hard work, and it can get very overwhelming because they have very, very long waits, have you see a doctor just to refer you to another one that's right upstairs that could have seen you anyway, and wait more months, and it gets very, very frustrating. And so I was not a very good advocate for myself. I freely admit it. My wife was my advocate. You know, she like dragged me down, the hallways of the VA and went down to the patient advocate, had them, talk to them. And, the whole system just didn't work well. And she tried a lot and worked a lot better than I could, but I had to get out of that system to feel better for myself. And I'll get into the more details of where I went and how I did that in a little bit. But I'd like to go ahead and give it over to Kate to go ahead and talk a little bit about this.
Hey, my story of advocating for myself started when I was very young. Actually, when I was 13, even though, my parents had the last say, I was always given all the information and, okay, what do you want to do? Do you want to have this surgery or not? Do you want to go to another hospital or not? Do you want to try this or not? So, from a very young age, I have my own advocate. I am very grateful that my parents gave me that chance and instilled in me how important it is to learn about your own medical condition, to be able to talk to doctors, to know what to say, to know how to pick a doctor. I'm just blessed by them. Kathy, what do you have to say about this topic?
Well, for me, it all started probably about 30 years ago when I started getting sick, and I kept going to the doctors. I was a single mom of two, trying to make ends meet. And every time I went to a new doctor, it was like, it's all in your head, it's all in your head. So the thing that worked for me was documenting how I felt every day, what I was eating, what medications I was taking, just how I was feeling in general, and additionally what the weather was outside, because a lot of times my symptoms were triggered by the weather. And so I started keeping a journal that's available to everyone called Memory Minder, and it has everything you need in 2 pages. As soon as I'm done, I'll pass it back to Kate because she actually has one in her hand that she can show you. But it shows, where you can mark on the body where you hurt and how bad you hurt. And it was a great tool for me. And not only did that tool help me out for my doctors, it helped me get disability. And so I highly recommend it to everyone. I should still be using it even though I've been on disability for 5 years, but I kind of changed over to what I call a living document, and it's all of my medical information, every drug I've tried, drugs that worked, drugs that didn't work, the doctors, their address, phone number, fax number. Going back 25 years, and I just keep that thing living. Every time I go to a doctor, I write it down. What was said, what was done, if I got a new drug, and everything. But that's kind of my story, so I'll pass this back to Kate, and she can kind of show you a little bit of the Memory Minder, and then we'll pass it on to the next person.
Yep, everybody, this is the Memory Minder that Kathy was talking about. And like she said, in 2 pages, it has today's weather where you can check off. It has weight, morning and night, temperature, all the vital signs, a spot for your medications, where you hurt on your body, what activities you did that day, and then today's conditions, symptoms, and other fun stuff, dietary, and Looking at it, I wish I would have found it sooner because I've been keeping track of everything. But this is a much neater way to do it. And I mean, I can really see it as a tool to take to your doctor and say, okay, this is what's going on. You have to believe me. And, you know, it also has a spot for comments, which is a good place to, because I know we all have lists that we take to our doctor. And in the comments section, I can write my questions right there. Or, you know, highlight stuff or whatever. I mean, that's something we all need to do. We need to know our needs. What's going on with me? How do we fix it? Lois, what do you have to say?
I love that idea of the memory minder. That is a great tool. Also, if you can't get a memory minder, it's school supply season. So these little spiral notebooks like this, you know, just a simple spiral notebook, I think you can get them like 10 for $1 sometimes. So go right now and buy that and some pens if you need so, and keep track, because believe it or not, doctors and nurses, we love that. We love when you bring that into us. We love that we can look and say, oh my goodness, okay, yeah, you really do have something going on here. And we appreciate anything you give us in writing, because we can also scan that into your record and give it back to you. Or if you have a copy that you can give, I always take a copy. I make a photocopy of just my basics, and I give that to the doctor or nurse so that they can just look that over real quick or put it into my file. And also keep, if you can, a copy of your own records. Like Natalie said, get a copy of your records. That is your #1 way to help yourself, especially if you have to go see a new doctor or you're getting referred to someone new. It will save you a lot of time, a lot of hassle, and a lot of red tape. Okay, Kate, back to you.
Like Lois said, getting a hold of your medical records is a good idea. And, I mean, not all doctors are nice. Sometimes they can tell you, reading through your file, that, okay, doctor, because this doctor is a complete quack, or this doctor doesn't believe me, or oh my god, I can't believe my doctor just wrote that in my file. Who wants it? Okay, back to Nellie.
Yes, I'll take it back. Exactly, that's what happened to me too. I was reading through my medical file. There was one instant where there was a doctor. I had my tonsils taken out and they completely infected, but I didn't know that was the case. And I was hurting so bad. And you know, I have kind of a high pain threshold because I'm always in pain. So when I complain about pain in the middle of the night and go to the emergency room, I am dying. So I did that, and the doctor went there, but, you know, I'm also really scared of doctors and tests. Not the best thing to have when you're a spoonie, but anyway, so I'm always really nervous when I go in, like extremely. I get anxiety attacks, everything. But I still go. So, so he wanted to look what was going on, and he wanted to open my mouth. But it hurt so much that I couldn't open my mouth. So he forced my mouth open, and I heard so much that I passed out. He wrote in the report that I was so nervous and gave myself a panic attack and passed out. I'm like, not going to say those words, but anyway, that's what he wrote in my report. I'm like, I already filed a complaint, but now that I see what you've written, I want to file another complaint because I hate you. Anyway, a little bit off point. Let's go to a couple of the comments we've had. Charlotte said, I've had to go through 11 doctors and 4 different hospitals before someone finally believed it was not all in my head. I would cry from happiness when someone finally told me that he believed me. You know, we are talking about when you probably already have some diagnosis and you're keeping track of stuff and going to your doctor, but you can also be at the start of this journey. You have no idea what's wrong with you, and you need to keep track of everything you're feeling, how the weather is, what you're eating, to show a doctor, because you don't have a diagnosis yet. So it's going to be even harder for you to get someone to listen to you and not just send you to like a psychiatrist. Or I had some breathing therapies because they thought I was having panic attacks, but it was my thyroid. Well, Elizabeth says, I've had the same experience, many, many years of doctors hopping, trying to find one that will believe I'm not just hunting for meds. Well, Wendy says it took 20 years, but finally got diagnosed by GI, still working on getting more answers, but having trouble finding a good rheumatologist. Well, Holly says, I know I need to get a better doctor. I wish all doctors cared enough to find out what is wrong. You know, not all doctors are evil. Let's say that. You know, doctors work with what they have, and if you have something like you're having a heart attack, or even just normal rheumatic things in your joints, or you know, something a little bit more normal, a doctor can help you perfectly fine. When you have something autoimmune, an autoimmune disease, mostly those are very difficult, or just symptoms that they don't know what to work with, how, for example, your thyroid will give you a lot of weird symptoms if it's out of whack and they can never find what's wrong, you know, then it's going to be even more difficult. So the journaling and advocating for yourself is just really important, especially in the beginning of your journey. Who wants to say something about that part? Mark, I'm going to give the mic to you.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and talk about how advocating for yourself by choosing a doctor can help you out, where sometimes you have to do your own research, find a path that you want to choose, and look at all the evidence. Don't dismiss things just out of hand. There was my mistake for a long time. I eventually decided to try a legal path in my state of Maine with medical marijuana. However, the VA system does not go through that. You can't just fill out the paperwork and have them sign it and legally do it in the state of Maine that way, because the VA won't touch that paperwork. You have to, in a lot of states, choose a specialized doctor that will prescribe that medicine. Or it's not technically a prescription because of federal law, it's actually a recommendation. And that recommendation allows you to participate in your state's program. That's how that works out. So you have to go through and look for those doctors. Like, you know, many people have said, having your medical record is key at this point, because you have to prove that medical marijuana, medical cannabis is something that will help you. A lot of states have their own guidelines. You'll need to look at those. Your countries outside will have their own as well. Look at those specifically. Chronic pain conditions like I have with fibromyalgia is covered in quite a few states, not all of them, and you still have to prove a long history of pain. So having your medical records is key for that. And so you take that and you bring that to that specialized doctor, and then they will then sit down, talk to you about it a little bit. I find that they don't talk and engage enough for a new patient, because it leaves a lot of questions still for a lot of people. However, if you have questions, ask. Don't leave the office still wondering. They are going to be your first person to ask. Then where you get your medicine will be the second place to ask, because they're never the same place. So sometimes being your own advocate means blazing your own trail and choosing a path yourself. And that takes time and patience and a lot of self-advocacy because not everybody wants to listen. I think I've covered that pretty well there. I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Kathy.
Thanks, Mark. I wanted to, reinforce about getting your medical records. Unfortunately, I've been to so many doctors in the past years that I've got my living medical document that I've done myself, so I can just print out. And I have a list of the doctors, but they want 25 cents a page, and I'm not paying it. So that's why I keep my living document. It's also good to have an advocate with you, your advocate buddy, I guess, your sidekick. When you go to the doctors, I usually take my husband. Sometimes he hears things that I don't, and that's always nice to have. I'm in the process of establishing new doctors in Pennsylvania. I moved there a year ago, and it is hard. It is so hard. But I did find a medical group that was instrumental in Pennsylvania putting into law the medical marijuana act, I guess if you want to call it, that they just signed a few months ago. Yeah, it's going to take a year or so before they start getting dispensaries up and things like that and all that rolling. But at least I'm establishing myself in the medical group that was instrumental in doing that, so I know that they're already educated and know what's coming in the future to possibly use that as an avenue for medication. I'm on medication right now that I really want to get off of. I've been on it for 5 years, and it's a royal pain in the butt. It's expensive, and I'm just ready to let go of it. But I know if I let go, my pain levels are going sky high. I'll pass this back to Mark.
I just wanted to go ahead and add on that just a little bit. After I had switched over to medical cannabis, there was my transitional period. However, currently to date, I don't take any pharmaceutical medications on a daily basis. If I get a cold, something like that, that's different. However, I was on pages of medicine beforehand. So part of choosing your path can also determine what you're taking and how much of what. And I'd just like to say how well it had worked for me, just to kind of add on to that, to get off medications. Sometimes looking into some alternative options work. Cannabis, diet options for certain conditions work very well, other things like that. Sometimes you have to look at something besides just a magical pill. I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Kate.
Thank you, Mark. What Kathy said about getting your medical records. In the States, I find that, yes, they, depending on the doctor, they will charge you for this, that, and the other thing. However, you can ask for a copy of the clinic notes. Usually, they will not charge you for a copy of the clinic notes. That's the notes from an office visit or whatever. They won't charge you for that. And then usually, if you get like a blood test run or anything, you can go to the hospital medical records, and well, the bigger hospitals are going to charge you, but if you go to a small hospital, usually they just run it off and hand it to you and you're good. Also, about finding a doctor, because we've been talking about that a bit, finding a fit with the doctor. I always like to treat my first appointment with the doctor like an interview. I'm interviewing them to take care of me. And are we going to be a fit? I'm up front with them right away. I tell them, I am going to research what you tell me. I am going to come to you with questions. I might bring studies to you And I just want to talk about it. I want to know your take on it. I'm not pushing for an actual specific treatment. I'm just asking your questions. I'm asking for your expertise on this stuff. I want to be an active partner in my healthcare, and like Mark said, do take somebody with you that you trust. I think Kathy said that too. When I go to sit with me in the talk with the doctor, the nurse, with me to make sure that everything is being done as it should be. She actually came to visit me one day when my shunt was in failure. It hadn't been failing before I went into the hospital. But thankfully she was there, and I did get the treatment I needed. The doctor took her seriously, and I went to surgery. All right, who wants it? Lois, you've been quiet. Oh, Ellie.
You want me to take it? I'll take it for just a sec. The only thing I have to say in terms of doctors is that don't be afraid to get a second opinion. I went through several rheumatologists before I got one who would listen to me, but I didn't stop looking and I didn't stop asking. And some doctors might take an attitude towards you when you say you want a second opinion, and some will say, okay, go ahead. Sometimes they'll recommend someone to send you to, and then sometimes you have to go search for it. But definitely, 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 if you don't think you've gotten the right answers or the right diagnosis or the right fit, you have the right for a second, third, fourth, fifth opinion. And insurance, typically, if you can prove, something along the way, they'll pay for it. So definitely do that. On that note, I will pass it back to Natalie.
Well, another way that I advocate for myself, next to trying to find a doctor that can help me, that can take weeks, months, years. In the meantime, I'm ill and I need to do something about it, and I'm getting worse and I need to do something about it. So in my case, with my thyroid condition, I found a website where there was a lot of very detailed information, and I just went deep into that community of the specific disease. There are patient-to-patient support groups. There are also online doctors that you can follow and listen to, like webinars or to podcasts, or all these different things are now available online. So if you know which disease to look for, I can highly recommend joining disease-specific support groups and patient-to-patient groups. Like with my Hashimoto's, I'm in one very, very good support group, and they also do a specific diet that I started following before I found my doctor, because now I found a doctor in America who can help me, not here yet. I was just trying to figure out, okay, which test do I need to have done? So I went to a private lab here to have a blood test done that I didn't get. I got a blood test here, and then I was put on the waiting list because of the national healthcare system here. Everything takes forever. I don't have to pay, but I just have to wait like a year. So I supposedly can go in 2 weeks, and that means I have been waiting for about a little over 6 months. In the meantime, I just looked, okay, how much money do I have? How much money can I spend on a private test? If I have a private test done, what should I have tested first? So first of all, I was like, well, I think I have Hashimoto, so I should check the antibodies in my thyroid. So I went to this private lab, and I had the test done, and I paid the 200 euros that it was. Well, actually, my partner paid it for me because I didn't have it. And got the test done. Within 5 days, I got the results, and my antibodies are crazy high. They're like almost 800, and they should be below 5, so it's very bad. So this gave me the proof, the medical proof that I'm right. I do have this disease that I already thought I had, and later found out through my medical file that another doctor had pointed out that I probably have. So then I started working on my diet, and now I've made a list of the next batch of tests that I want to have done. But now that the hospital called me, I'm going to wait it out a little bit and see what tests the hospital will do and will order for me, and wait for the results. Then I can see what's missing in the tests that the hospital, the insurance covered tests, will say, and which ones I'll get. And I will go back into the private lab and order whatever I think is missing. So it's not only finding your doctor, because I'm working now with a doctor that I've seen once for 5 minutes in a hospital here. Now I'm going to have to wait and see in the end of August probably. And there's this doctor in America, but she's really far away, and I'm not officially her patient yet because I have to see her face-to-face legally first before she's allowed to officially treat me. So she's only allowed to guide me and tell me, okay, she checked all the tests that I did research on, and I was very pleased to hear that she very much approves of the list I made to have tests done. So that's proof that by reading books, listening to the online doctors, reading the websites, just be careful which websites. Don't just go to Wikipedia. Just go to very, very specific websites. Read on the Mayo Clinic, or specific pages. For me, with my thyroid, that was one of them, was Stop the Thyroid Madness. It's really, really specific about this topic. And find information wherever you can. Like Kate said, research what the doctors are telling you. So in my case, I didn't have a doctor telling me anything. I figured everything out by myself. But if you have a doctor telling you something, just go ahead and research. Okay, maybe we'll piss off the doctor a little bit. Who cares? It's your health, it's your life, and you have to take control. Well, that was my thing. I'm going to pass it to Kathy again.
I want to expand on what Natalie said about going to specific illness groups and things like that. I attended a pain conference here a year and a half ago that was put on by the U.S. Pain Foundation, and found great people to work with. They're really good about offering advice and giving you ideas, like Natalie said. Also, they have lists of doctors that they can pass you on to that have worked with the foundation. Also, finding illness-specific groups, like Natalie said. I found a fibromyalgia group that I like a lot, and when my dad was sick, I found a pancreatic cancer site that was really good for him. So it helped a lot, and I learned a lot. And as long as you know what's going on in your body and know how you're feeling, and you are able to document that, you're going to be the best advocate you can for yourself. The other thing I wanted to mention real quick was when you get your medical bills in and things like that, double check them, make sure that you're not being double booked, double charged, or things like that. My mom has caregivers, so I am diligent about looking at the invoices, making sure there's supportive documentation for all of the hours that they're charging me for, and I did find a $2,000 mistake. So to me, I felt good because I found that, and it also saved my mom money because I was able to do that for her. So I'll pass this over to Mark and see what he has to say.
I don't have anything to add at this moment, so I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Natalie and let her go from there.
We're going to play the bouncing game because I saw Lois has something to say.
I just wanted to add just a little, excuse me, just a little bit onto what Kathy was saying with the medical bills. There are lots of ways besides just our health and our medical bills and doctors that we need to advocate for ourselves. I recently became the target of a company. I'm not going to mention that name or go into that, but there was theft that I found on my account, and the company kept telling me that they had taken that off of my account, and months went by and it didn't, and things happened. My phone got shut off. I called the company to find out what was going on, and they tried to say that they completed that theft charge, which had been around $4,000. And I had, at the time, was really bad fibro fog and pain, and so I had to take notes with every single person I talked to on the phone. I took very detailed notes of what they said to me, exactly what time they called, the date they called. So if you're being the target of something and you can't afford a lawyer, you don't have legal help or anything like that, take notes, take notes, take notes. Don't be afraid to tell them you have a lawyer. You can, you have to, you will get legal help, but just tell them you have a lawyer and don't be afraid to fight them. I sat down and finally went piece by piece through my statement with a person on the phone. They were looking at my account online. I was looking at it online, and finally got someone to listen to me that, oh yeah, there are some charges here that are not from me, and they couldn't possibly be from me. I saved myself $4,000, but it took me 5 months of fighting these people. They were waiting for me to roll over and just pay it. They're hoping for that. And so please stand up for yourself. If you don't have the ability, find someone who does. I got on Facebook and did posts asking people for help and questions to find out exactly who I could contact and what I could do to help myself. And I got tons of information, and there's tons of help out there. So please ask for help and educate yourself about anything and everything that you might need, whether it's your medical health or something going on in your life that you're a target of. Watch out for scams, especially if you're on disability. I think that we're targets, or even just having that wheelchair license plate. Yeah, it's great and it saves us time, but it makes us targets for scams. So please be aware and advocate for yourself. Stand up for yourself if you can't find someone to do it for you. That's all I have to say on that, so I'll pass it back to you, Natalie. Oh, Kate. Kate's got something.
Thank you, Lois. All right, everybody. I'm going to touch on something that none of us like to talk about. And we get really sick, or we're in an accident, and for some reason we can't advocate for ourselves. We can't speak for ourselves. As a hospice major, this was really stressed in college. And I actually had to fill out my advanced directives 5 different times. So I kind of know what I want. But it's very important for all of us, no matter how young or old you are, because you never know what's going to happen. And you don't want to leave your family to make those decisions for you. It's a good thing to have a plan, to know what you want. My favorite advanced directives to fill out, I'm just going to throw it out there. It's illegal in most of the 50 states. In other countries, I'm sure you could use it as a template to write out your advanced directives or whatever, but it's the 5 wishes. You can look it up online. It's just great. It goes through, there's 5 separate wishes, and personalize a lot, which makes it really nice. Like, you can check a box to have warm oil rubbed on your feet or whatever. If you're completely out of it, you can choose not to have your family come visit you. You can make those decisions. But yeah, that's all I had to say there. Natalie?
Yeah, I think that's a very good one. I actually never thought about that before, but it's a good thing to think about. What will happen? What if your health deteriorates so much that, you can't speak for yourself and you already know what you want to have done if something bad happens? I think it's a good thing to think about and to write up. That's a good one. Well, we're kind of at the end of the show because the hour is already almost over. I don't know if one of you has something to add before I wrap it up. Just a quick check. By raise of hands, somebody needs to say something on this topic anymore. Well, it's obviously very important. I hope after watching this episode you will understand why it's very important to be your own advocate, and you got some tips on how to be your own advocate. And that can be from doctors to medicine to diet, going your own way, doing your own research, and having your living will. All of the things are, yeah, just extremely important. Well, that was the end of this episode. Next week, we'll be back with another episode. The topic will be decided then. I can't tell you right now because we just don't know yet. If you want to receive a notification every time we go live, go and hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel, because if you're subscribed, you will get a notification every time we upload a new video and every time we go live. So you can participate by putting your comments below the video. We will read those during the show or before the show or after the show, and we try to incorporate those in every show. So to make it a little bit of an interactive show. Please share the link to our YouTube channel, share it with your friends. We would like Spoonie Space to be known amongst more people. We just started it and we're slowly growing. And we thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again next week. Bye.